Radio.
Hello, welcome to your news at noon on Kaieteur Radio. I'm Kevin Smith. Let's tell you that irresponsible, misleading, and unfortunate were just some of the words chartered accountant and attorney at law Christopher Ram used to describe the excuse recently preferred by Vice President Bharat Jagdeo for the government's failure to audit ExxonMobil's expenses within the 2-year deadline prescribed in the lopsided Stabroek Block deal. Jagdeo had said the government is disappointed that it has not been able to push through the crucial audits which cover over $9 billion in expenditure for the Stabroek Blocks, Liza Phase 1 and 2 projects. Ram said that no such audit has been done in 17 years of the PPP and 5 years of the APNU-AFC, signaling to the oil companies that they were free to do as they please in all matters concerning their operations, including local content, an absolute requirement of the law. Now that successive governments have failed to protect the country's interest, rein in Exxon, and verify the billions of US dollars charged every month against oil revenue, Ram alluded to the absurdity of the vice president's excuse to now blame the absence of strong local content. In other news, touting the natural gas to be had from the Stabroek Blocks Liza 1 and 2 oil field developments as a transitional fuel towards the ultimate goal of 100% renewables, Vice President Jagdeo this past week signaled a likely increase in the cost of project already pegged at some $900 million. Jagdeo said that despite prevailing global circumstances, the government cannot hold back development, and as such is forging ahead with the project despite likely increases in cost. According to him, when factoring in prevailing global conditions, the prices for key commodities needed for the project have increased. He specifically pointed to the fact that the price of steel, for example, has been escalating on the world market. And moving on, the EPA has approved Environmental Resources Management, or ERM, to come up with the terms and scope within which an environmental impact assessment study will have to be done with regards to the proposed $900 million gas-to-energy project, a project for which ERM had conducted studies previously. At least this is according to the EPA, as per the document that was approved in September last and since made public. The document highlighted that the power plant and distribution of electricity from the power plant are not included in the scope of the EIA, except for their consideration when addressing cumulative impacts for the project. It was explained that this is since the power plant will be constructed, owned and operated by the government of Guyana or another entity, and as such, the scope for that project was not included directly. And coming from The Guardian, ExxonMobil and Chevron are the world's most obstructive organizations when it comes to resistance to governments setting climate policies, according to research into the prolific and highly sophisticated lobbying ploys used by the fossil fuel industry. The biggest U.S. oil companies, as well as the American Petroleum Institute, a lobbying group, were found to be the worst offenders in a global report by lobbying experts at the think tank Influence Map. It concluded that companies were manipulating governments to take incredibly dangerous paths in their approach to climate action. Oil giants have mounted intense resistance to Joe Biden's green agenda, according to the report, as the U.S. President's administration attempted to shift the country away from fossil fuels. And just before we take a short break right here on your News at Noon, let's tell you that in the murder of Dr. Colin Roach, whose battered remains were found at his office on Tuesday night, suspected of his murder is his friend and still on the run is an accomplice. Investigators were looking for the two men who were seen leaving his office during the time who they suspect murdered him. Yesterday, we were informed that the prime suspect was identified as his close friend of the slain doctor who frequented his office. It is believed that he and an accomplice had entered the victim's premises to beat him to death. Roche's suspected killers had reportedly then driven off with his SUV and carried away his cell phones. Detectives had located the SUV abandoned on the Schoonard Road, West Bank Demerara, with his license plate removed. The detectives later turned up at the prime suspect home and found only his car. He, along with his family, were missing. You're listening to Kaieteur Radio 99.1 and 99.5 FM. This is your news at noon. We will return after the break.
Diana, join me on the Glenn Lal Show every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 7:20 p.m. and a rebroadcast at 11 a.m. The Glenn Lal Show only on Kaieteur Radio 99.1 and 99.5 FM.
Welcome back. Let us continue with the news. The Czech Republic has been seriously looking at developments in Guyana and has expressed a strong interest in supporting the revitalization of Guyana's sugar industry. This was made very clear by His Excellency Petr Kavan, the Czech ambassador to Cuba, when he received Guyana's ambassador to Cuba, Halim Majid, earlier yesterday. Ambassador Kavan explained that his country produces various kinds of tractors, trucks, and equipment related to the sugar industry, among other things, and that he would be happy to engage Gaisuco on this matter. The Czech Republic, a member of the European Union since 2004, will assume the EU presidency next year. It has a stable, open economy and is regarded as the most industrialized country in the EU. Meanwhile, the High Court on Monday ordered the Guyana Revenue Authority to hand over tax documents to facilitate a money laundering investigation by SOCU. According to a release from the Guyana Police Force's Communications Unit, the High Court dismissed an application for a refusal of a production order filed by GRA and ruled in favor of SOCU. Commissioner General of GRA, Godfrey Stacia, was directed to comply within the next 14 days with the production order, which was granted by Chief Justice Roxanne George Wiltshire. And moving on, the United States Centers for Disease Control and Prevention on Tuesday approved the use of Pfizer BioNTech COVID-19 vaccine for children between 5 to 11 years. The CDC noted that scientists had conducted clinical trials with about 3,000 children, and the FDA has determined that Pfizer met the safety and efficacy standards for authorization in children within the age brackets. The authorization for the vaccine comes after the CDC and the FDA weighed the risks and benefits of getting children vaccinated against COVID-19. In other news, the appeal case between the New Building Society and its former Chief Executive Officer Maurice Arjun has been deferred yet again. The matter, which came up before the appeal court on Monday, was adjourned to December 16th. In this instance, it is to facilitate the court's considerations of a judge's request to recuse herself from the matter. Arjun and the mortgage financing institution have been locked in a court battle for over 12 years now. The court case came about after the former CEO filed a lawsuit challenging the grounds by which he was dismissed from his job. Arjun and two of his managers were fired on allegations of fraud. The men endured negative publicity, as well as a trial in the magistrate's court before they were cleared of the charges. And moving on, the Ministry of Health yesterday reported that 2 more women who tested positive for COVID-19 have died. As a result of this, Guyana's COVID-19 death toll has moved to 930. According to the ministry, the latest fatalities are that of 2 unvaccinated women, a 68-year-old from Region 4 and a 100-year-old from Region 7. 129 new cases were recorded, bringing the total number of confirmed cases in the country to 35,929. 19 patients are admitted into the ICU, 56 persons in institutional isolation, 2,552 in home isolation, and 17 in institutional quarantine. To date, a total of 32,372 persons who tested positive for the virus have recovered. The UN Secretary General calls the climate crisis a code red for humanity. Senior Guterres says no more diplomatic niceties. That could be trouble for Guyana, which barges ahead swiftly to produce. Our leaders are being warned. Listen and pay heed. Don't be on the wrong side of this climate change crisis. And with that, we've come to the end of today's News at Noon. I'm Kevin Smith. Thank you for listening.
Want value for your advertising dollar? Then place your ads on Kaieteur Radio's newscasts. Streamed live on 6 different mediums, reaching hundreds of thousands. Advertise today and watch your dollar grow. Call us on 225-8465 or 226-8210.